The courthouse doors felt heavier than they should have. Or maybe it was just me, carrying 42 years of marriage on my shoulders while Raymond walked out ahead of me like he didn't have a care in the world. His lawyer, Bernard Winston, they went to Howard together back in the day, clapped him on the back and laughed about something I couldn't hear. Probably about how they'd just stripped me of everything except Mama's old Buick that barely made it to church on Sundays. I stood there on those marble steps in my good navy dress, the one I'd worn to both our children's weddings, and watched Raymond climb into a brand new Mercedes. The same Mercedes I'd seen parked outside our house, his house now, when that young woman with the honey blonde weave started showing up. Simone, Jasmine, Candace. I never did catch her real name. Didn't matter. She was young enough to be our daughter Keisha's age, and she'd taken my husband like it was nothing. "Mrs. Thornwell," the clerk called from behind me. I turned. She was a young sister, maybe 25, with kind eyes that looked like she'd seen this story before. "You need to sign these final papers." I walked back inside, my sensible shoes echoing in the hallway. The pen felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds when I signed my name, Willa Mae Thornwell, for the last time as a married woman. 42 years, gone. The house on Maple Grove Avenue where we'd raised Keisha and Darnell, gone. The savings account I'd contributed to from every paycheck from my 30 years teaching at Frederick Douglass Elementary, gone. Raymond's pension from the post office, gone. Even the silver our mothers had given us at our wedding reception at Greater Mount Zion Baptist Church in 1983, gone. "You get the Buick," Bernard had said in the courtroom, smirking like he was doing me a favor. "It's paid for, and Mr. Thornwell feels it's appropriate for your needs." What Raymond felt was that I'd be too poor and too proud to fight. That's what happens when you marry your lawyer's college roommate. They know how to work the system, know which judges to request, know exactly how to make a wife of 4 decades look like she contributed nothing while her husband built an empire. Because that's what Raymond had, a real estate empire. 3 rental properties, a small commercial building downtown, and a partnership in a consulting firm. All of it acquired during our marriage, with my money helping at the start, with me managing the books for the first 10 years while teaching full-time and raising 2 babies. But none of that mattered when Bernard presented his case. Raymond was the breadwinner. Raymond was the entrepreneur. Raymond deserved to keep what Raymond had built. I walked to the parking garage where the Buick sat between 2 shiny SUVs, looking as tired as I felt. The car was older than some of my former students, brown and faded, with a crack in the windshield I couldn't afford to fix. Raymond had left the title and keys on the front seat like I was something he was donating to Goodwill. My hands shook as I started the engine. It coughed twice before turning over, and I sat there for a moment, letting the tears come. Not big, dramatic tears. I'd cried those weeks ago when I first found out about her. These were quiet tears, the kind that come when you realize you're 72 years old, and everything you built with someone has disappeared like morning fog. The drive to my new place took 15 minutes. Not new, really. A 1-bedroom apartment in the Riverside complex, the kind of place young people rented before they got their lives together. My neighbor was a college student named Deshaun who played his music too loud on weekends, but the rent was $650 a month, and it was all I could afford on my teacher's pension. I'd taught 2nd grade for 30 years, loved every minute of it, even when the district had no supplies and I bought crayons and notebooks out of my own pocket. I'd made $42,000 a year at my peak, and now my pension was $2,000 a month. After rent, I'd have enough for food, utilities, and not much else. No more Sunday dinners for the grandkids, no more birthday money and cards, no more being the grandmother who always had a little something put aside. Keisha hadn't called since the divorce was finalized. Neither had Darnell. They'd both taken their father's side, said I should have tried harder to make him happy, that men go through things and women need to understand. Keisha, my baby girl who I'd rocked through colic and walked to her first day of kindergarten, had actually said, "Daddy needs to be happy, Mama. You can't expect him to stay miserable forever." Like I'd been the one making him miserable. Like 42 years of cooking his favorite meals, pressing his shirts, supporting his dreams, raising his children, and being faithful through everything meant nothing. The apartment smelled like the previous tenant's cooking, something with too much curry. I set my purse on the kitchen counter that was smaller than the pantry in my old house and looked around. A card table I'd bought at the thrift store, 2 folding chairs, a mattress on the floor in the bedroom because I couldn't afford a bed frame yet, the TV Keisha's husband Terrence had given me, an old flat screen they were going to throw away when they upgraded. I made myself a cup of tea using the electric kettle I'd bought at Dollar General and sat at the card table. Through the thin walls, I could hear Deshawn's music, something with a heavy bass that made my tea ripple. I'd gone from a 4-bedroom house with a garden to this, from hosting Thanksgiving for 20 people to not knowing if anyone would visit for Christmas. My phone buzzed. A text from Janice, my best friend since we were both student teaching in 1975. "How you holding up, Willa?" I typed back. "I'm here. I'm breathing. That's about all I got right now." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Coming by tomorrow with groceries. Don't argue." I smiled despite everything. Janice understood. Her husband had passed 5 years ago, and she knew what it was like to rebuild a life you thought was settled. She'd been telling me for months that Raymond wasn't worth my tears. But you can't tell someone their marriage is over until they're ready to hear it. The evening crept by. I ate a sandwich for dinner, turkey from the deli, white bread, nothing fancy. Watched a game show on TV. Took a shower in a bathroom so small I had to be careful not to hit my elbows on the walls. And then I lay down on my mattress on the floor and stared at the ceiling, wondering how it had all gone so wrong. Before we continue, please drop a comment if you've ever experienced something like this. We'd love to hear your story and subscribe to the channel to help us grow. Sleep came in pieces. I'd doze off, then wake up thinking I heard Raymond coming home, before remembering there was no Raymond, no home, no nothing. Just me and this little apartment and a future that looked darker than any night I'd known. Morning came with sun through the window I hadn't bothered to cover yet. I made coffee, got dressed in old jeans and a sweatshirt. No need to look nice for anyone anymore. And was trying to figure out what to do with my day when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, figured it was spam or a debt collector, but something made me pick up. "Mrs. Willa Thornwell?" A man's voice, professional, with an accent I couldn't quite place. "Yes?" "This is Henrik Vandenberg from Croix Suisse Bank in Geneva, Switzerland. I'm calling regarding account number 847293, established in 1953 under the name Violet Hammond." My mother. Mama's name was Violet Hammond before she married Daddy. "I'm sorry, there must be some mistake," I said. "My mother passed in 1993. She never had any Swiss bank accounts. She was a seamstress in Alabama." "I understand this must be surprising, Mrs. Thornwell. However, we have documentation showing that Miss Violet Hammond established this account with an initial deposit of $15,000 in 1953, with instructions that it should remain untouched until her death, at which point it would pass to her eldest daughter, you." My mind was spinning. 1953. Mama would have been 25 years old. We were so poor back then. Daddy worked at the mill, and Mama took in sewing. We lived in a shotgun house with no indoor plumbing until I was 10 years old. Where would Mama have gotten $15,000? "Mr. Vandenberg, I think someone's playing a joke. My mother never had that kind of money." "Mrs. Thornwell." His voice was patient. "The account has been gaining interest for 72 years. It's now valued at approximately $4.8 million. The phone slipped from my hand and clattered on the floor. I heard Mr. Vandenberg's voice, tiny and distant, calling my name. My legs gave out, and I sat down hard on one of the folding chairs. $4.8 million. From my mother, who died 32 years ago without ever saying a word. With shaking hands, I picked up the phone. "I'm here. I'm sorry. Did you say—" Did you say 4.8 million? Yes, ma'am. Due to compound interest and the initial investment strategy established by the account holder. We've been trying to locate you for quite some time. Your mother's instructions were very specific. The funds could only be released to you personally, with proper identification and verification. Why didn't anyone tell me before? The account was set up under very particular circumstances. Your mother's paperwork indicates she wanted the account to remain private until after her death, and she didn't file proper next of kin documentation until 1992, just a year before she passed. We've spent the last 3 decades verifying the lineage and locating you. We found you through your marriage records. Marriage records. Raymond's name would have been on those, which meant, Mr. Vandenberg, who else knows about this? Only you, Mrs. Thornwell. We are required by Swiss banking law to contact the account holder, you, directly. No other party has been informed. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. Raymond didn't know. Keisha didn't know. Darnell didn't know. Nobody knew that yesterday I'd been stripped of everything, and today I was sitting in a cheap apartment worth nearly $5 million. What do I need to do? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. We'll need to arrange for verification of identity and transfer of funds. I can overnight the necessary paperwork to you, or we can arrange a video call with notarization. Given the amount, I'd recommend you consult with a financial advisor and an attorney before we proceed. An attorney? I almost laughed. The only attorney I knew was Bernard Winston, and he'd just finished taking everything I had. Yes, ma'am. I can provide recommendations for firms that specialize in international banking and estate law if you'd like. We talked for another 20 minutes. He took my address, my information, explained the next steps. The whole time I kept waiting to wake up, for this to be some dream or some scam. But Mr. Vandenberg sent verification through email while we were still on the phone, documents with official seals, my mother's signature that I recognized from old birthday cards, photos of paperwork dating back to 1953. When we hung up, I sat at that card table for an hour without moving. Mama had left me nearly $5 million. Mama, who'd darned our socks because new ones cost too much. Who'd made our clothes from feed sacks. Who'd saved bacon grease like it was gold. She'd had $15,000 in 1953, more money than most black families in Alabama had ever seen, and she'd hidden it away in Switzerland for me. The question burning in my mind was simple. Where had she gotten it? And why had she never said a word? My phone rang again, Raymond's number. I stared at it, watching it ring once, twice, 3 times. Then I turned the phone off and sat in the silence of my little apartment, holding the only thing that mattered anymore, a secret that was about to change everything. Janice showed up at 8 the next morning with 2 bags of groceries and a look on her face that said she wasn't taking no for an answer. She took one look at me, sitting at that card table in the same clothes from yesterday, and set those bags down with purpose. "Willa May, you didn't sleep, did you?" I shook my head. How could I sleep? My mind had been racing all night trying to piece together how my mother who'd taught me to stretch a chicken across 3 meals, had gotten $15,000 in 1953. That was more than Daddy made in 5 years at the mill. "I need to tell you something," I said. "But you have to promise not to tell a soul, not even your sister." Janice pulled out a chair and sat down. We'd been friends for 50 years. She knew when I was serious. "What's going on?" I told her everything. About the call from Switzerland, about the $4.8 million, about Mama's account that had been sitting there for 72 years. When I finished, Janice just stared at me with her mouth open. "Your mama? Violet? The woman who saved used aluminum foil?" I know it doesn't make sense. I've been trying to figure it out all night. Where would she have gotten that kind of money in 1953? And why wouldn't she tell me? Janice stood up and started putting groceries away in my little kitchen. "Your mama was the most private woman I ever met. Remember how long it took before she even told us your daddy wasn't your biological father?" I did remember. I'd been 35 years old when Mama finally told me the truth. The man I'd called Daddy my whole life, Ernest Hammond, had married Mama when I was 2. My real father had been a man named Calvin who died before I was born. She'd kept that secret for over 3 decades. Maybe this has something to do with Calvin, Janice said, reading my mind like she always could. Maybe he left her that money. In 1953? Mama said Calvin died in 1951, right after the war. And if he'd had money like that, why would Mama have been so poor? Good point. Janice closed the refrigerator and turned to face me. Well, whatever the reason, your Mama wanted you to have it. And right now, you need to call a lawyer and figure out how to get that money before Raymond sniffs it out. That's exactly what I was afraid of. Raymond had friends everywhere, at the courthouse, at the bank, at the post office where he'd worked for 30 years. If word got out about this money, he'd find some way to claim it was marital property, some loophole his buddy Bernard could exploit. The bank man said I need an attorney who specializes in international law, I said. I don't know anybody like that. Janice pulled out her phone. But I do. Remember Vanessa Crawford? She was in my Sunday school class when she was little. She's a lawyer now, works for one of those big firms downtown, handles all kinds of cases. She'll know what to do. Within an hour, I was on the phone with Vanessa Crawford, who was now Vanessa Hollis, a partner at Morrison & Hollis law firm. She remembered Janice, remembered me too from when I'd taught her younger brother. Mrs. Thornwell, I need you to not discuss this with anyone else, Vanessa said, her voice sharp and professional. Not your children, not your ex-husband, not even your pastor. Swiss banking laws are very strict about privacy, but if word gets out locally, there could be complications. What kind of complications? Your ex-husband could try to argue the account should have been disclosed during divorce proceedings. Even though the funds weren't technically yours until the verification process is complete, a good lawyer might try to claim you knowingly concealed assets. It would be a weak case, but it could tie things up for years. My stomach turned. He'd do that. His lawyer would definitely do that. Then we move fast. I'm going to contact the Swiss bank today, expedite the verification process, and set up a trust structure to protect the assets. Once the money is transferred, we'll need to be strategic about how it's managed. Do you have any immediate financial needs? I looked around my tiny apartment. I need everything, but I can wait if it means keeping this safe. You won't have to wait long. Give me 72 hours. Vanessa was true to her word. 3 days later, I was sitting in her downtown office, a beautiful space with dark wood furniture and a view of the city, signing papers while a notary watched. The Swiss bank had video called to verify my identity, had me answer questions about my mother that only I would know, and then Vanessa worked her magic. The money was transferred into a trust she'd set up, something called an irrevocable trust that meant even if Raymond tried to sue, he couldn't touch it. Vanessa had also connected me with a financial advisor named Felicia Okoye, a sharp young sister who'd grown up in the same neighborhood where I'd taught school. Mrs. Thornwell, with proper management, this money can generate around $200,000 a year in interest alone, Felicia explained. You'll never have to worry about money again. Your grandchildren won't have to worry. Their children won't have to worry. I started crying right there in Vanessa's office. Not sad tears this time. Relief. Pure, overwhelming relief. What do you want to do first? Vanessa asked gently. I thought about that apartment, about Raymond and his new Mercedes, about Keisha and Darnell who hadn't called once to check if their mother was okay. I want a place to live, somewhere nice, somewhere I can breathe. Felicia smiled. I think we can arrange that. 2 weeks later, I moved into a beautiful 2-bedroom condo in the Parkview Towers. Hardwood floors, granite countertops, a balcony overlooking the river. The building had a doorman named Troy who called me Mrs. Thornwell and helped carry my groceries. I'd bought real furniture, a bed with a headboard, a couch that didn't fold out, dishes that matched. Janice helped me decorate, and we laughed like we were teenagers again, hanging curtains and arranging throw pillows. For the first time in months, I felt like myself. Before we continue, if this story resonates with you, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss our next story. I was careful, though. Didn't buy anything flashy, didn't tell anyone where the money came from. When people from church asked about my new place, I said I'd received a small inheritance from a distant relative. Not a lie, technically. Mama was the most distant she'd ever been, keeping secrets from me beyond the grave. The problem with secrets, though, is they never stay buried forever. I'd been in my new place for about 3 weeks when Keisha finally called. Not to apologize, not to check on me, to ask for money. Mama, I know things have been hard since the divorce, but Terrence and I are in a bind. We need about $3,000 to catch up on some bills. I was hoping maybe you could help. $3,000. The same daughter who'd said I should have tried harder to make her father happy now wanted money from the mother she'd abandoned. Keisha, I'm living on a teacher's pension. Where would I get $3,000? I don't know, but Auntie Janice said you moved to a nice condo. Daddy said you were living in some rundown apartment. So something changed. My blood ran cold. Daddy said? You've been talking to your father about me? He's still our father, Mama. He said he drove by that apartment complex looking for you, but you weren't there anymore. He wanted to check on you, make sure you were okay. Raymond wasn't checking on me. Raymond was keeping tabs. And if Keisha knew I'd moved, then Raymond knew, which meant it was only a matter of time before he started asking questions. I can't help you right now, Keisha. I'm sorry. That's just great, Mama. Thanks for nothing. She hung up before I could respond. I sat on my new couch in my new condo and felt the walls closing in. Raymond knew something had changed. He'd come looking for me at the old apartment. How long before he started digging deeper? Vanessa had warned me this might happen. If he gets suspicious, he'll investigate. You need to be prepared for confrontation. The confrontation came sooner than I expected. I was leaving the condo building 3 days later, heading to the grocery store, when I saw him. Raymond, standing next to his Mercedes in the parking lot, arms crossed, waiting. He looked older than I remembered. The stress of keeping up with a young girlfriend must have been wearing on him. His hair had more gray, and he'd gained weight around his middle. Willa. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Nice place you got here. Must run about $1,800 a month. What do you want, Raymond? I wanted to see how you were doing. Keisha said you moved, and I got worried. This is a big upgrade from that Riverside apartment. Where'd you get the money? That's none of your business anymore. You made sure of that in court. He stepped closer, and I resisted the urge to back away. After 42 years, I knew when Raymond was about to turn on the charm. Look, I know things ended badly between us. Bernard said I should take a hard line, but maybe we were too hasty. We spent 4 decades together, Willa. That has to count for something. It didn't count for much when you moved your girlfriend into our house before the ink was dry on the divorce papers. His jaw tightened. Candace and I are taking a break. She's not who I thought she was. Young women these days, they're only interested in what you can give them. I almost laughed. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. I've been thinking, Raymond continued. Maybe we could try again. Start over. I made a mistake, and I'm man enough to admit it. You want to get back together? I said it flatly, not a question. I want my wife back. The woman I built a life with. I'm willing to make it right, Willa. I'll have Bernard draw up new papers. Make sure you're taken care of this time. There it was. Make sure I was taken care of. Like I was a charity case. Like he was doing me a favor. How'd you know I'd be here, Raymond? He had the decency to look embarrassed. I may have followed you from church on Sunday. I just wanted to talk, and I knew you wouldn't answer if I called. So he'd been stalking me, watching me, trying to figure out how a woman he'd left with nothing was now living in a place he could barely afford. Go home, Raymond. We're done. Willa, be reasonable. At our age, starting over is hard. Wouldn't it be easier to just— I said no. I walked past him to my car. Not the old Buick anymore, but a nice certified pre-owned Camry I'd bought cash. Nothing flashy, nothing that would draw attention, but reliable and comfortable. Raymond grabbed my arm, not hard, but firm enough to stop me. Where'd you get the money, Willa? Did you have some account hidden during the divorce? Because if you did, Bernard needs to know. That's fraud. I pulled my arm away, and something inside me snapped. Something that had been building for months, maybe years. All the times I'd bitten my tongue, all the times I'd been reasonable, all the times I'd put his comfort above my own. You really want to know where I got the money? From my mother. She left me an inheritance. And it's mine, Raymond. Not yours, not the court's, not Bernard's. Mine. Now get away from me before I call the police. I got in my car and drove away, hands shaking on the steering wheel. In my rearview mirror, I could see Raymond standing in the parking lot, pulling out his phone. He was calling Bernard. I knew it as sure as I knew my own name. And Bernard would start digging, would try to find some angle, some way to claim I'd hidden assets. But what Raymond didn't know, what nobody knew except Vanessa, Felicia, and Janice, was that I wasn't the same woman who'd walked out of that courthouse defeated. I'd spent the last month not just setting up trusts and moving into a nice condo. I'd been planning. And when I got home that evening, there was a message from Vanessa that made me smile for the first time all day. Mrs. Thornwell, I have news about Raymond's company. The commercial building he owns, the one on State Street, it's about to go up for sale. The partnership is dissolving, and he needs to buy out his partners or sell. Given his current financial situation with that girlfriend's lawsuit, yes, apparently she's suing him for fraud. He'll have to sell, and I think we should buy it. What do you say? I listened to that message 3 times, and each time, my smile got wider. Raymond thought he could come back into my life and sweet-talk his way into my money? He thought I was still the quiet, submissive wife who'd let him walk all over her? He was about to learn just how wrong he was. Vanessa's office had become my second home over the past 2 months. We'd been building what she called a strategic approach to asset acquisition, but what I called getting my life back piece by piece. The building on State Street is perfect, Vanessa explained, spreading papers across her conference table. Raymond owns 30% through his consulting partnership. His 2 partners, Gerald Moss and Vernon Clark, are ready to sell their shares. They're tired of carrying Raymond's debt. His debt? I leaned forward. Felicia, my financial advisor, pulled up a spreadsheet on her laptop. Raymond's girlfriend, Candace Porter, filed a lawsuit 3 months ago. She's claiming he promised her a certain lifestyle, got her to quit her job, convinced her to invest her savings in his business ventures, and then tried to dump her when his finances got tight. She's suing for $300,000 in damages. I let that sink in. The same man who'd claimed I contributed nothing to our marriage had convinced another woman to invest her money in his schemes, and now she was taking him to court. There's more, Vanessa said. Raymond took out a second mortgage on the house, your old house, to cover legal fees and business expenses. He's paying Candace's rent in a luxury apartment as part of a temporary settlement while the lawsuit proceeds. And his consulting business is barely breaking even because he's been spending more time in court than working. So he's desperate, I said. Extremely. Which is why he came to you. He thought if he could reconcile, he'd have access to whatever money you've come into. Vanessa smiled. But we're going to give him something else instead. The plan was simple but devastating. I would buy out Gerald and Vernon's shares of the State Street building, 60% total, for $1.2 million. The building housed Raymond's consulting firm and 2 other businesses that paid rent. As majority owner, I could make decisions about the property, including who got to stay and who had to leave. What about Raymond's 30%? I asked. He'll have a choice, Vanessa said. sell it to you at fair market value, or watch you run the building without him. Either way, his consulting firm's lease is up for renewal in 60 days, and as the new majority owner, you'll decide whether to renew it. Janice, who'd come with me for moral support, let out a low whistle. Willa May, you're about to become Raymond's landlord. The thought made me laugh. After 42 years of cooking his meals and washing his clothes, I'd be the one deciding if he had a place to work. We moved quickly. Gerald and Vernon were so eager to get out from under Raymond's mess that they agreed to the sale within a week. By the end of the month, I owned 60% of the State Street building, and Raymond didn't even know it yet. The day I planned to tell him, Darnell called. My son, who hadn't spoken to me since the divorce, suddenly needed to talk. Mama, I heard you're doing well, living in a nice place and everything. I'm managing, Darnell. That's good. Listen, Keisha told me you couldn't help her with some money a while back, but I was hoping maybe things have changed. My business is going through a rough patch, and I could use about $5,000 to get caught up on some invoices. Darnell's business was a car detailing shop that he'd opened with money Raymond had given him. The same son who'd said I should understand that Daddy needs to be happy now wanted his abandoned mother to bail him out. Why don't you ask your father? Silence. Then, Dad's got his own problems right now. His girlfriend is suing him, and he's barely keeping his head above water. I thought you might be able to help since you're doing so well. How do you know I'm doing well? Dad said you're living in Parkview Towers. Those condos aren't cheap. So Raymond had told the children about my new place, probably trying to figure out where my money was coming from. They'd both chosen his side during the divorce, and now they came crawling back when they needed something. Darnell, when I was sleeping on a mattress on the floor in that apartment, did you call to check on me? Mama, don't be like that. We were trying to stay out of it. No, you were staying on your father's good side because you thought he had the money. Well, he doesn't. And I'm not a bank. If you need help, figure it out like I had to. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking, but not from fear or sadness, from anger. From 42 years of putting everyone else first and now watching them all come back when they thought I had something to give. Before we continue, quick question. What would you do in this situation? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. The confrontation with Raymond happened on a Tuesday morning. I'd scheduled a meeting at the State Street building, told Raymond's assistant I needed to discuss the property management. He thought I was coming as a tenant, maybe looking to rent office space. He didn't know I was coming as his landlord. I walked into that building wearing a navy blue suit Janice had helped me pick out, carrying a leather briefcase Felicia had given me, and feeling like the woman I should have been all along. Vanessa walked beside me, all business in her sharp gray pantsuit. Raymond's consulting firm was on the second floor. The reception area was nice, leather couches, glass coffee table, motivational posters on the walls. His assistant, a young woman named Tanya, greeted us with a smile. Mrs. Thornwell, Mr. Hammond is expecting you. Right this way. Raymond's office had a view of downtown. He sat behind a massive oak desk that I remembered helping him pick out 15 years ago, back when I thought we were building a future together. He stood when we entered, and his smile faltered when he saw Vanessa. Willa, Ms. Hollis, I wasn't expecting both of you. This is a business meeting, Raymond, Vanessa said, setting her briefcase on his desk. Mrs. Thornwell is here in her capacity as the new majority owner of this building. The color drained from his face. What are you talking about? Vanessa pulled out the paperwork. As of 2 weeks ago, Mrs. Thornwell purchased Gerald Moss and Vernon Clark's combined 60% share of this property. She now owns the building that houses your consulting firm, and I'm here to inform you that your lease is up for renewal in 60 days. Raymond looked at me, and I saw it all flash across his face. Shock, anger, disbelief, and then something I'd never seen before. Fear. You bought the building? Where did you get that kind of money? From my mother, I said calmly. Remember the inheritance I mentioned? Turns out it was substantial, more substantial than your little real estate empire. He sank into his chair. Willa, we can work this out. We're partners in this building. I still own 30%. And you're welcome to sell that 30% to me at fair market value, Vanessa said. Or you can hold on to it and watch Mrs. Thornwell make all the decisions about how this building is run, starting with whether your lease gets renewed. You can't do this. I've been in this building for 12 years. My entire business is here. You should have thought about that before you took everything from me in the divorce, I said. My voice was steady, no shaking, no tears. You left me with a broken-down car and an apartment I could barely afford. You told your children I should have tried harder to make you happy. You convinced a judge that 42 years of my life meant nothing. I made a mistake, Willa. I told you that. I want to make it right. No, Raymond. You want access to my money. You want me to save you from the mess you made with Candace, but I'm not interested in saving you. I'm interested in building my own life. Vanessa set a document on his desk. You have two options. 1, sell your 30% share to Mrs. Thornwell for $600,000, which is fair market value. 2, keep your share, but your consulting firm's lease will not be renewed. You'll need to relocate within 60 days. Either way, Mrs. Thornwell is moving forward. Raymond's hands were shaking as he picked up the document. $600,000? That's not enough. I need that money to fight Candace's lawsuit and pay off the second mortgage. Then you should have managed your finances better, I said. You have 1 week to decide. We stood to leave and Raymond jumped up from his desk. Willa, please, I'm begging you, don't do this. I'll lose everything. I turned back to look at him. This man I'd loved for 42 years, who'd shared my bed and raised my children, who'd walked away from me like I was garbage. And I felt nothing but pity. Now you know how it feels, I said. We walked out of that office with Raymond calling after us, his voice echoing down the hallway. Tanya, the assistant, looked at me with wide eyes as we passed, and I saw something there. Respect, maybe? Or understanding. Raymond called me 50 times that day, left voicemails begging, threatening, pleading, called Keisha and Darnell, who both called me demanding to know what I'd done to their father. You're ruining him, Mama, Keisha cried. How could you be so cruel? I'm being exactly as cruel as he was to me, I said, and I'm not ruining him. I'm just not saving him. There's a difference. I blocked their numbers. All 3 of them. After months of silence, they didn't get to come back into my life just to make demands. Raymond held out for 5 days before he caved. He sold me his 30% for $600,000, which I paid in cash. The look on Bernard Winston's face when he showed up to finalize the paperwork was worth every penny. Mrs. Thornwell, Bernard said stiffly, I didn't realize you had resources of this nature. There's a lot you didn't realize, Bernard. Like how a good attorney would have ensured I got a fair settlement instead of helping his friend steal everything I'd built. After Bernard left, I sat in Vanessa's office and let out a breath I'd been holding for months. What happens now? I asked. Now you decide what you want to do with the building. You could lease the space to Raymond's consulting firm at market rate, or you could lease it to someone else. It's your choice. I thought about it for a long time. Part of me wanted to kick Raymond out completely, watch him scramble to find new office space while fighting Candace's lawsuit and paying off his debts. But another part of me, the part that had loved him once, that had raised children with him, that remembered the good years before everything fell apart, felt something different. Offer him a lease at market rate, I said. Same as anyone else would pay. No favors, but no extra punishment either. If he can afford it, he can stay. If he can't, he'll have to go. Vanessa smiled. You're a better person than I would be. I'm not being nice. I'm being fair. Which is more than he ever was with me. Raymond couldn't afford the market rate lease. Between Candace's lawsuit, the second mortgage, and buying out his partners, he was tapped out. He moved his consulting firm to a small office in a strip mall on the south side of town. Last I heard, he'd lost 2 of his 3 biggest clients because they didn't like the new location. Candace won her lawsuit. The judge awarded her $175,000 plus legal fees. Raymond had to sell the house on Maple Grove, our house, to pay her. He moved into a 1-bedroom apartment not far from where I'd lived right after the divorce. The poetry of it wasn't lost on me. Keisha and Darnell came around eventually, not to apologize, not at first, but because their children, my grandchildren, asked about me. Little Destiny, Keisha's daughter, called me on her own one day. "Grandma, why don't you come to my school play anymore?" "Your mama and I aren't talking right now, baby." "Because of Grandpa? Mama said you were mean to him." I took a breath. "Your grandpa and I had some grown-up problems, but that doesn't have anything to do with you. If your mama says it's okay, I'd love to come to your school play." Keisha called me that night, not to apologize, but to negotiate. She wanted her children to have a grandmother, even if she didn't want to admit she'd been wrong. I set boundaries. I'd see the grandchildren, but I wasn't giving anyone money. I wasn't bailing anyone out. I wasn't going back to being the family bank or the family doormat. If they wanted a relationship with me, it would be on my terms. It took time, but slowly we built something new. Not the same family we'd been, but something more honest. 6 months after buying the building, I was sitting on my balcony watching the sunset when Janice called. "How you feeling, Willa?" "Good," I said, and I meant it. Real good. "No regrets?" I thought about that, about Raymond in his apartment, about the house I'd lost, about 42 years that ended in a courtroom. "No regrets," I said finally. I learned something important. You can spend your whole life trying to make other people happy, trying to be good enough, trying to earn love. Or you can realize you were always enough. You were always worthy. And anyone who didn't see that was the one with the problem, not you. "Amen to that," Janice said. "So what's next for Willa Mae Thornwell?" I looked out at the city, at the life I'd built from nothing but my mother's secret and my own determination. "Whatever I want," I said. "Whatever I want." The building on State Street became profitable. I leased Raymond's old space to a Black-owned marketing firm run by 2 smart young sisters fresh out of college. They reminded me of my students, all ambition and hope. The other businesses thrived, and within a year, the building's value had increased by 40%. I donated to my old school, Frederick Douglass Elementary, enough to stock every classroom with supplies for 3 years. I set up college funds for my grandchildren with the stipulation that they maintain good grades and stay out of trouble. And I started a scholarship fund for single mothers going back to school, because I remembered what it was like to struggle. Mama's secret, whatever it was, wherever that money had come from, had changed my life. Not just because of the dollars, but because it had given me power when I had none. It had given me choices when I'd been left with nothing. It had given me a future when I thought mine was over. I never did figure out exactly where she got that $15,000 in 1953. I looked through her old papers, asked her few remaining friends, searched old records. Nothing. Mama took that secret to her grave, and maybe that's how it should be. Some things are meant to stay mysterious. What I do know is this: Mama saw me. Even from beyond the grave, even 32 years after she died, she saw me and knew I might need her. She planned for me in a way no one else ever had. And that love, that quiet, secret, powerful love, saved me when I needed it most. I still drive past the old house sometimes. There's a young couple living there now with 2 little kids. They've painted it a different color, put in new landscaping. It doesn't hurt like I thought it would. It's just a house. It was never the house that made us a family. Raymond and I see each other occasionally at school plays for the grandchildren or family events Keisha guilts us both into attending. We're civil, polite. But we're strangers now. Two people who used to know each other, but don't anymore. He looks tired all the time. Older than 74 should look. I heard through Darnell that he's working part-time at a friend's real estate office, that he had to take Social Security early, that he's driving a used Honda now instead of that Mercedes. I don't take pleasure in it, but I don't feel guilty either. We all make choices, and we all live with the consequences. As for me, I'm 72 years old, and I'm just getting started. I'm taking a watercolor class on Tuesdays, I'm traveling, saw New Orleans last month, planning a trip to Paris in the spring. I'm having Sunday dinners again, but only with people who want to be there, who see me as more than a checkbook or a convenience. And every night before I go to sleep, I look at the one photo I have of Mama from 1953, the year she opened that account. She's young in the picture, beautiful, standing in front of a house I don't recognize, wearing a dress that looks too fancy for our family's budget. She's smiling, but there's something in her eyes, a secret, a knowledge, a strength. "Thank you, Mama," I whispered to that photo. "Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for planning for me. Thank you for loving me enough to give me a future." And I swear, sometimes, I can feel her smiling back. That's all for today's story. If this touched your heart, please subscribe and share your own experiences below. We're all in this together.